And yes, another week in Whitehall. And what has occurred? Even more sleaze allegations, more Prime Minister's questions, and a delay on the release of the Sue Gray report into the number 10 Partygate scandal. Did Boris have yet another party? Or was it a work meeting? Or a chat amongst colleagues? And if it was a party, was the Prime Minister even aware of the laws around the gathering of holdings during lockdowns? Did Postman pattern his black and white cat visit to Graham Brady? Have the Zygons invaded the Earth yet? And the laughing policeman finally looking into the events of the Downing Street parties. Just as I'd started writing the script for this episode of Trainbasher Talks Politics, Dame Cressida Dick herself announced a police investigation into the parties. This is Trainbasher Talks Politics. So the Sue Gray report is delayed. And yes, for once, it's not the fault of Boris Johnson trying to sneak out from his responsibilities of the office of Prime Minister at number 10. It's instead the fault of Inspector Knacker of the Yard, Dame Cressida Dick herself, causing the report to be delayed due to an investigation by the Metropolitan Police into the parties at number 10. Here's what she had to say in a press conference.
We have a long-established and effective working relationship with the Cabinet Office, who have an investigative capability. And as you well know, they have been carrying out an investigation over the last few weeks. And what I can tell you this morning is that as a result, firstly, of the information provided by the Cabinet Office inquiry team, and secondly, my officer's own assessment, I can confirm that the Met is now investigating a number of events that took place at Downing Street and Whitehall in the last 2 years in relation to potential breaches of COVID-19 regulations.
But was it a work meeting or was it a party? Boris Johnson is the only one who knows the truth, and he is completely... Sorry, that sentence has been redacted due to severe conjecture. Oh, and the fact that it's a police inquiry, so it might be prejudicial to any case that the CPS might have to investigate. Either way, the position of the Prime Minister is now untenable, as it is highly doubtable that he could survive a police inquiry into his actions. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has welcomed the Metropolitan Police investigation into the Downing Street parties, saying, "The public rightly expect the police to uphold the law without fear or favour. No matter who they involve, nobody is above the law. There cannot be one rule for the government and another rule for everyone else." To be fair, the public do expect the police to uphold the law, and at least now they are investigating historical crimes, unlike an earlier statement put out by them when the Partygate scandal initially was raised. In Parliament, in an urgent question to the Prime Minister, MPs have slammed the actions of Mr Johnson for his, quote, truth-twisting, rule-breaking and law-breaking in Parliament, unquote.
Mr Speaker, on Burns Day it's probably appropriate if you'd start with the line, "The best laid plans o' mice and men gang after gley." Or perhaps a line from the other great Scottish writer Sir Walter Scott, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practise to deceive." I do wonder, Mr Speaker, now that the police are finally involved, how much more personal humiliation and indignity will the Prime Minister be prepared to endure? But perhaps more importantly, how much more of this embarrassing circus are his colleagues prepared to tolerate before they act to remove this man from office? Because this isn't going to go away. This wound is not going to heal miraculously by itself, and I'm sure we all know there's an awful lot more still to come out. So can I ask the Minister, at any time, has anyone from the Sue Gray inquiry contacted the Metropolitan Police? When did the Cabinet Office first learn of this police investigation? When does he now expect the Sue Gray report to be delivered? And finally, can he assure this House that when it is delivered, that it will be delivered in full, will be open and will be completely transparent for every member of this House to access?
Minister. Well, he asks me questions about the police investigation, and I have no knowledge about that, and nor would I expect or should I have knowledge about it. And he asks about the publication, and I have already indicated that the findings of the investigation will be published.
It's clear this government is now in total meltdown. Story after story about COVID laws being broken in Number 10, revelations about honourable members having constituency funding threatened by government whips, and now a Prime Minister and his staff under police investigation. In the midst of a pandemic and a cost of living crisis, and with Europe on the brink of war in Ukraine, we cannot go on with this chaotic government. No. Does the Minister accept that the Prime Minister's authority is in tatters? Will he advise his boss to do the right thing in the national interest and resign?
Minister. Well, I thank him for his advice on propriety, but he will forgive me. He will forgive me if I decline to follow.
It started with a joke about a fictional party during a dummy press conference. Then the faux outrage from the Prime Minister, who was angry about this joke. All the while, there were parties, lots of them, and he was at some of them. There's a mountain of evidence of truth-twisting, rule-bending and law-breaking, and it lands at the feet of the man at the top. So why is this Minister still defending the indefensible?
Minister. I see the honourable gentleman wishes to be judge, jury and executioner, but no one in this House would give him that position. What matters is justice, justice for all, and that will apply in this case as it does in any other.
So, we've got truth-twisting, rule-bending and law-breaking, and Ian Blackford quoting Scotland's favourite son, Robbie Burns. In other news, last week we talked about Sir Graham Brady and if Postman Pat would visit the Honourable Gentleman who chairs the 1922 committee. But hang on, has Mr. Postman been? Hang on a minute. I'm going to have to punch my producer a second because I did not tell him to play a song. What does he think he is? Is some kind of absolute radio station on digital online and on DAB radio? Oh, sorry. I'm not supposed to advertise radio stations. It's not in my contract. I'll be back in a sec. Back now, and I've just suitably chastised my producer for playing that song and probably gave me a copyright strike off YouTube. And anyway, I can confirm that there is some mutterings from Whitehall that Sir Graham Brady is neither close to or has not in fact received the 54 requisite letters expressing a lack of confidence in the Prime Minister. That means at the moment there's still been no vote of no confidence, meaning that Boris Johnson is still in power. However, when the Sue Gray report is released, and if the Metropolitan Police do decide to issue fixed penalty notices or charge the Prime Minister or anyone who works at Number 10 for the parties, then we shall see what the situation is. They might receive the 50 more magic letters. They might even have a vote of no confidence. And Boris Johnson might lose his job. We shall soon see.
Fire in the chamber. Fire in Heathborough, Westminster Bell. Fire in the Chamber. Fire in this Brexit hell. Dead rant from a sedentary position.
Have the manners to listen.
Whatever the what, where, when or who is.
Give a flying flamingo what your view is.
As the speaker's on his feet, the honourable gentleman resumes his seat. A member who has irked. He is entitled to be heard. Order, order. Have voltage.
Get out, man. You will not be missed.
Order. Have voltage.
Be a good boy, young man. Be a good boy.
Stop it.
I think that was one of the best parody songs that the YouTube channel Joe has released. Anyway, on to Prime Minister's questions this week, and this is yet more fun. Presided over by Sir Lindsay Hoyle, it is the most exciting half hour in television, and it has even reached new heights. This week, Boris Johnson faces more questioning from Sir Keir Starmer. And the leader of Her Majesty's Most Loyal Opposition starts off by asking the Prime Minister one simple question, to which everyone wants to know.
The Ministerial Code says that ministers who knowingly mislead Parliament will be expected to offer their resignation. Does the Prime Minister believe that applies to him?
To which, surprisingly, the Prime Minister agrees.
Mr. Speaker, of course, but let me tell the House that I think he's inviting a question about an investigation which, as you know, Mr. Speaker, I can't comment.
Wow, the Prime Minister agreeing with the leader of Her Majesty's Most Loyal Opposition. Will miracles never cease? Of course, Sir Keir Starmer goes for the jugular.
I think the Prime Minister said yes, he agrees the code does apply to him. And therefore, if he misled Parliament, he must resign.
But then the Prime Minister has to resort to childish insults. Captain Hindsight. That, of course, comes from Captain Garden Party.
Because we didn't listen to Captain Hindsight, that we have the fastest growing economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker, and we have got all the big calls right.
The guy that said in hindsight he now appreciates it was a party. We've discovered the real Captain Hindsight, haven't we, Mr. Speaker?
The Speaker has to get involved, as several members of Parliament on the government benches try and drain out the Right Honourable Member for Holborn and St Pancras, as he tries to spell out the significance of the Metropolitan Police investigating Partygate.
Let me spell out the significance of yesterday's developments. Sue Gray referred matter to the police, having found evidence of behaviour that's potentially a criminal offence. Prime Minister, if you do not understand the significance of what happened yesterday, then I really do despair. Because the police, Prime Minister, the police, having got that material from Sue Gray, subject it to a test to decide whether to investigate. And that test was whether it was the most serious and flagrant type of breach in the rules. The police spelt out that what they meant by that those involved knew or ought to have known what they were doing was an offence, and that there was little ambiguity about the absence of any reasonable thing. Does the Prime Minister...
This question will continue, and I will hear the question. Unfortunately, you might not believe this, but our constituents are very interested in both the questions and the answers. If some members do not wish to hear it, please leave quietly. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, having got the material from Sue Gray, the police had to take a decision as to whether what they had before them was the most serious and flagrant types of breach of the rules. If members want to laugh at that, laugh. The police spelt out what they meant. They decided on the material they've already got that those involved knew or ought to have known what they were doing was an offence, and that there was little ambiguity around the absence of any reasonable defence. Does the Prime Minister really not understand the damage his behaviour is doing to our country?
Mr. Speaker, I hope that the right honourable gentleman understands that although the issue that he raises is important, there is simply no way, as he knows, as a lawyer, that I can comment on the investigation that he is currently taking place. But what he also knows, he talks about the most serious issue. He talks about the most serious issue before the public today and before the world today. It's almost as though he was in ignorance of the fact, Mr. Speaker, that we have a crisis on the borders of Ukraine, and I can tell him what is going on in the cabinet room of this country is that the UK government, no, Mr. Speaker, the UK government is bringing the West together so that we have, led by this government and this Prime Minister and our Foreign Secretary and Defence Secretary, to bring the West together to have the toughest possible package of sanctions to deter President Putin from what I think would be a reckless and a catastrophic invasion. That is what this government is doing. We're getting on with the job, and I think he needs to raise his game, frankly.
Can I just say honestly, can I just say to both sides, our constituent watching it, tensions are running high, and what we need to be able to do is allow the people out there who are bothered about their futures to hear what is said on both sides. So please, let's give the respect our constituents deserve. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, this was the Prime Minister who went into hiding for 5 days because of these allegations. Talk to me about being around for the allegations. Mr. Speaker.
Can I just say, I don't want to do this, but I am determined to make sure our constituents can hear. The next person that stops me hearing will not be continuing in this debate.
There's more spin from Boris on that than a roundabout in a kid's playground. To be honest, it's about time the Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, tells the Prime Minister to give a straight and truthful answer. Anyway, on to the leader of the Scottish National Party in Westminster, and he has this question for the Prime Minister.
Ian Blackford.
Mr. Speaker, every moment that the Prime Minister lingers, every nick in this death by 1,000 cuts is sucking attention from the real issues facing the public. Tory cuts, Brexit and the soaring cost of living have pushed millions of families into poverty. The impending national insurance tax hike hangs like a guillotine while they eat cake. Show the Prime Minister the door.
Boris has to throw his toys out the pram by fat-shaming the leader of the Scottish National Party in his response.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't know who's been eating more cake. What I would say to the right honourable gentleman, for whom actually, Mr. Speaker, I have a behind the scenes. People don't get this, but actually we cooperate well, and I want to continue to do so.
Jesse.
Personally, I think that is very wrong of the Prime Minister. But now, one question uses some very unparliamentary language.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Happy unbirthday to him. Happy unbirthday to him. Because just like the Mad Hatter, he didn't need the excuse of a birthday to have a party, but it did help, didn't it? So when he had groups of people singing to him when illegal gatherings indoor were illegal and communal singing was banned, my constituents think that he has lied. My constituents think that he lied to this House, and my constituents think he lied to them when he was partying and telling them all...
Order. In passing what your constituents say, but you can't continue to labour that one point. Lord Russell-Moyle.
So, I would prefer to be led by a lawyer than a liar. Will he now resign?
The honourable member will be withdrawing that last comment.
I withdraw it. That's what my constituents think, not mine.
Right, too. Listen back, Prime Minister.
Well, I think that the honourable gentleman, I'm afraid, in everything he said just now, plainly doesn't know what he is talking about. He plainly doesn't know what he's talking about. What I can tell him, and what I can tell his constituents, is that irrespective of what they want to focus on, and I understand why they do, Mr. Speaker, this government is going to get on with the job and deliver for the people of this country.
To be fair, the Speaker must have he had to invite the member to withdraw that comment. But personally, I would love to give my opinion to the Prime Minister. However, I don't think it could be very parliamentary either. Who would want to work with that truth twister? As one person who sent me an email after listening to last week's episode said, Boris has as much truth and passion as a fart in a spacesuit. And finally this week, the government chief whip has denied claims that he has told a member of parliament that she was sacked as a minister due to her Muslim faith. Nusrat Ghani, the 49-year-old member for Wealdon in East Sussex, was sacked as a transport minister in the February 2020 reshuffle. The member for Wealdon said she was told by a whip, who she denied identify, that her Muslimness was raised as an issue in Downing Street. This is how it was reported by Euronews.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has ordered an inquiry following allegations by a Muslim MP that her faith was given as a reason for her dismissal. Nusrat Ghani said a government whip told her that her Muslim woman minister status was making colleagues feel uncomfortable. Conservative Chief Whip Mark Spencer identified himself as the person accused of making the remarks, but said the claims were completely false.
Whip Mark Spencer has denied the allegations made, however, saying in a statement, "To ensure other whips are not drawn into this matter, I am identifying myself as the person that has had claims made about this evening. These accusations are completely false and I consider them to be defamatory. I have never used those words attributed to me. It is disappointing that when this issue was raised, the member for Wealdon declined to refer the matter to the Conservative Party for a formal investigation. I provided evidence to the Singh investigation into Islamophobia, which concluded that there was no credible basis for the claims to be included in the report. Is this the beginning of the end for the Conservative government? Only time will tell." This has been yet another week of Train Basher Talks Politics. I've been your host, and we shall see what happens in the funhouse that is Parliament next week, every Wednesday at 7:30. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on Saturday with another show.